Police answered a 000 call to an address at Belsham Road in Carryong at about 1:30 this afternoon. The lone woman occupant had told them a man in his 20s had asked to enter the house to telephone the NRMA for road service. When she offered to make the call while he waited outside, the man produced a shortened firearm. The terrified woman slammed the door and called police, who launched an immediate manhunt. Despite an extensive search and door-to-door inquiries by police, the man has eluded capture. Detectives praised the woman for having the presence of mind to keep him out of the house. Meanwhile, they're advising other residents to stay equally alert. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Despite a population explosion and the annual influx of holidaymakers, the Nelson Bay Ambulance Station has one officer and one car on call. It's a concern that was brought home to a Boat Harbour family when an 83-year-old woman became ill late last week. The ambulance arrived promptly, but as his mother's condition worsened on the way to hospital, Terry Pendergast was asked to drive the vehicle while its officer worked frantically to revive the woman.
And in the rear vision mirror you can see what's going on, and also you can hear what's going on. So my mind was not on driving, it was on what was happening to Mum.
Terry's mother, Catherine, died shortly after arriving at the Nelson Bay Polyclinic, leaving him questioning the government's funding priorities. Staff levels at the Bay have remained static for the past 15 years, leaving the duty officer with increasing responsibility and often in need of public assistance. Have the people of Port Stephens, the people of the Hunter, got a right to expect more personnel on the ground?
Yes, they certainly have, and that was borne out by the management's own managerial report into the staffing in the Hunter, which recommended that we increase the staff here by something upwards of 60 officers.
Where can you go with this now?
We've also faxed the Minister, and the Minister's simple reply back to us was that he's looking at it. So we take that as a bit of a slap in the face for the people of the Hunter, and in fact we'll be recommending to the Executive of the Union that we will most certainly apply some sort of industrial action in the very near future to bring this to a head.
Isolated by time and tide, the lighthouse has survived for more than a century. Where sea storms and bureaucrats failed to tear it down, finally an arsonist's blaze succeeded in gutting the historic cottages late last year. The fire was heartbreaking for Frank Future, his wife Cassia and another Newcastle couple who were negotiating a lease to move into the cottages. But they haven't given up hope of restoring the building. Despite a $100,000 repair bill, the group still wants to set up home at the light and hopes to run guided tours in a small museum.
It is sound. The walls are sound. What's here, the chimneys and the gable are sound. But they need to be restored straight away.
The Australian Maritime Safety Authority, that has jurisdiction over the property, may sell it, along with 29 hectares of land on the point, and the National Trust has lost interest.
They made an insurance claim and they claimed $50,000 and they've taken it. And when we asked them and wrote to them and said, what are you going to do with this money? Is it coming back into it? And they said, no, we've got no responsibility for it anymore. We don't see that we need to do that.
A public meeting seeking support for the preservation of the cottages will be held at the Fingal Bay Surf Club next Wednesday night. These are the type of pictures international delegates will see at the conference in Rio de Janeiro in June.
Well, our local images here are unique and very rich, to equal to any in Australia but worldwide. And they're coming from the whole unique race of people, Indigenous people, our people, who've lived in harmony for 45 to 75,000 years with the land.
Scientists will meet with Indigenous people from around the world in an attempt to find solutions to pressing ecological problems by combining scientific knowledge with traditional land use practices.
We want to show them the beauty of creation and the beauty of the land and the environment and how we've survived and kept it in place. And if we don't stop now and work together and use those technologies, we're going down a road of destruction.
To produce the video, Bill Smith has enlisted the help of Ian Hamilton, a former student of the University of Newcastle's Aboriginal and Communications Studies. Most of the footage will be shot in the Wollombi area west of Newcastle.
I think Bill's people have interesting stories to tell about their past, and they seem quite relevant today. And I guess that's why they asked us to help them make the film.
Just over 4 months ago, Michelle McDermott watched her teenage daughter's baby fighting for life. The desperately ill baby, suffering a blood infection, was flown by the Westpac Lifesaver helicopter from Taree to the John Hunter, and against all odds the baby survived. The helicopter played a vital part, and that was recognised by a grateful Michelle.
It has specialised equipment, specialised crew, and it is worth it, no matter whether it's a young child, an old person, able, disabled. It is an important service for all people.
You think a lot of people in the community just don't think about it? And
not until they need it. We spent a week in intensive care and we saw and heard the helicopter. Your heart thuds when you hear it coming in, but yet you know how important it is to people.
The interview with Michelle was for an NBN documentary on the Angel One rescue chopper. But no one was to guess that in less than a week, Michelle would again encounter the helicopter, this time as a patient after being injured and trapped in the wreck of a car on the Lakes Way near Bulladila. With her local parish priest, Father Corrigan, she'd been visiting her still sick grandchild in Newcastle. Recovering from her injuries in the John Hunter Hospital, she recounted the relief on hearing the helicopter arrive at the accident scene.
I was grateful that it was there, very grateful, just to hear the sound of the sirens and hear the wings coming. I thought I can make it in that short ride. In an ambulance I wouldn't have been able to hold on, I wouldn't have felt I could have made it.
It was a regal beginning for the community cottage. New South Wales Governor Rear Admiral Peter Sinclair declared the building officially open. The centre will be used for lectures about a number of issues including first aid, nutrition and mothers support groups. The cottage is an older style single bedroom building which was especially transported to the school site. Volunteers spent hours refurbishing it and the school has employed a community liaison officer to coordinate the use of the cottage.
They call them tags, talented and gifted. For so long the focus has been on the slow learner. At Newcastle University, 300 teachers learning how to help the kids we thought didn't need help.
We've always assumed that they could look after themselves, but now we're realising, well, they need some extra assistance as well if they're to realise their potential.
Professor Braggett has written 4 books on the subject. The theme, how not to sabotage the successful student. Some juggling act, teachers having to make sure the slow keep up, at the same time ensuring the quick aren't held back. The answer, don't leave it all up to the school system.
There are parents sometimes who have much more ability than some of the teachers who can come in and even voluntarily give their assistance.
And don't restrict them to school hours.
Lunchtime sessions, after school sessions, where they bring in experts and where art classes are held, music classes, for those who have extra abilities.
Anthony Griffiths, NBN News. The Minister met with the local representatives at the Longyard Hotel in Tamworth this morning. It was a chance to test the waters on the controversial issue of tariff protection. Just last month, a Queensland member of the National Party resigned from the front bench in disgust over the Liberal Party's move to eliminate tariff protection in the sugar industry. Mr Crean was keen to put the political boot in.
The important thing that needs to be underscored is that despite the fact that the Nationals say that they have agreement that tariffs will only be reduced to negligible levels, the Liberal Party through John Hewson is saying elimination.
The Minister for Primary Industries has just announced a new 8-year program for the dairy industry, said to be worked out in consultation with dairy authorities. The program sets out a slow reduction in tariffs in this once heavily protected industry.
Dairy farmers in this country are going to face a pretty stark choice in the future. Do they want that plan to continue, which they're happy with, or do they want tariff protection wiped out altogether?
And the numbers you needed were 2, 5 and 3, Doogie Boy from Coolfax and Prudhoe Bay. The 6th at Tamworth today was the Country Comfort Inn Mornington Handicap over the journey of 2,100 metres, and it was a win for Newcastle. Three, 11 and 6 form the trifecta, Regal Schiller from Mr Marceau and Blue Pin.
The Pirates have been struggling to find form of late. Well, they found it yesterday, and Inverell paid the price. Inverell struggled to keep in touch, but the Pirates finally pulled away to win by 9. The final score, 21-12. In other games, Walker provided the upset, beating Moree, Gunnedah too good for Narrabri, and Corindai kept Tamworth scoreless. They reckon this track is second only to Oran Park. And they reckon Lismore's Richard McLeod is second to none. Certainly the statistics agree, he is the national number 1. And when you reach those dizzy heights, chances are you'll attract some high-profile attention. McLeod has, from this man, former Formula 1 ace Alan Jones. Jones providing McLeod with a financial foot-up. Today's event, a lead-up to the New South Wales titles on the June long weekend. Mr McLeod heads off to compete in Japan at the end of this month. 200 of Australia's best barefoot boffins graced the Williams River this weekend, but when it was all said and done, it was the Smith and Adams show. Steve Smith set the pace in time trials yesterday, qualifying with ease. He went on with it today, winning the unlimited inboard section in a time of 17.41. He wasn't finished. Later on, he made it a double with the unlimited unrestricted title, the time 16.78. Outboard went to Gary Adams, 16.66, the weekend's fastest time. Brother Greg was barefooting backwards and doing a good job of it, winning that division. Natalie Mabry was the weekend's top woman. Richard Spears took out the veterans event. Wing sensation of fire, a two-try Wembley hero last weekend, went 8 better this time in a breathtaking display to shatter Wigan's previous club record of 7 touchdowns in a game. Chariots had the 18,000-strong crowd in raptures and Leeds premiership hopes in shreds by half-time as he gave them a taste of things to come, 5 stunning tries. And Germany's Boris Becker has suffered one of his most demoralising defeats on home soil with a 6-1-6-1 loss to compatriot Michael Stick in the German Tennis Open semi-finals. Stick, who beat Becker at Wimbledon last year to win his first Grand Slam, played some superb serve and volley tennis on the slow clay court to triumph in just 71 minutes. Becker lost touch to such an extent he gave his racket to a ball girl to see if she could do any better. She couldn't. Stick will now play Stefan Edberg in the final after Edberg's 7-5-7-6 win over Carlos Costa.
The kid from Collinsville in central Queensland came into the Knights' first grade line-up at the end of last season and this year has been in brilliant form, scoring 6 tries in only 7 matches. And today, Brunker was over the moon.
It's definitely a high, just a buzz that you can't explain. Everyone's been asking me what I feel like and you just can't explain it.
It was one of Adrian's allies who broke the news.
Well, I got off the phone from a kicking coach and he said that I've made the side, and I said to him if he's lying to me I was going to punch his head in, but it was true because the next phone call was from some paper up in Queensland. They said I've made the side and I was just over the moon.
The first to congratulate the lanky winger were former State and Australian player Mark Sargent, who was receiving treatment for a hamstring tear, and Robbie McCormack, the deposed New South Wales reserve.
Yeah, that's a bonus. That makes me a lot happier with Archie getting in there. He's had a good year and he's tried hard, and I'm sure he'll go well.
As happy as he was for Brunker, the Moth himself was disappointed at being dropped.
It was short and sweet, I suppose, but like you said, I did nothing wrong and I was happy with it. But with the extra pace out wide, I suppose, with Carter, and that'll make it a lot easier for replacements.
Now the Newcastle Knights can boast 6 State of Origin players from within their ranks, the latest still in a daze and not too sure what happens from here.
Said I don't know, I've only just got off the phone with papers and I don't even know what's going on.
You're not happy at all, eh?
Yeah, I am happy. I'm over the moon.
It was a start coaches dream of. 2 smart first half tries and some super conversions. A lead of 14-0 against the brilliant Green Machine. A near perfect 40 minutes of football. But as we know, you must play for the entire 80 minutes to get the points, and a couple of errors and the pendulum swung Canberra's way.
If you had to highlight a particular incident, I suppose, just after half-time when Mark Lanville went through and we looked like scoring and we didn't complete that set, within the next 2 sets that Canberra had, they'd scored 12 points.
A win over the Raiders would have put the Knights on top of the Winfield Cup ladder, but instead they remain in 3rd spot, 1 point from the lead.
Well, there's probably lots of clubs that could have a look at the if-only competition table. We're on top of the if-only competition table at the moment in our minds, but you sit down and you say, what lessons did we learn from that one? We were particularly pleased with the first half, obviously.
For Paul Marquardt, a day he'd rather forget. A big tackle on former Knight David Woods. And then this. It could have been a 26-all draw, but it wasn't to be, and certainly there is no blame levelled at the Tyler second rower. Despite the losses to Brisbane and Canberra, Wade is optimistic about the remainder of the season.
I still believe we're the best defensive team statistically. I think we're running third on 4, so if we can maintain that sort of result across the season, we'll still be smiling as the season progresses.
And a reminder, all the action of this great game on NBN tonight from 10:30.
It had been rumoured that the twin cinema development would be scrapped because of financial problems. However, developer Michael Franklin says the project will still go ahead. Armidale Mayor Rosemary Leach last night informed the City Council the project had been scrapped because the developer was having difficulty raising the money. A development application for the cinema has now been lodged with Council, and the developers say it's still full steam ahead.
It has not been shelved. I will announce if will be shelved, and I'm sure it won't be. We're very confident, we're determined to get the project going. Armidale needs cinema. It will be a very successful business.
Mr Franklin says he has discussed the situation with Mayor Leach.
The project is going to proceed. It is delayed at the moment, but it's never been not proceeding. I have spoken to Rosemary Leach, and she has apologised to me for making that statement that it's not proceeding, and I feel that she may have been misreported in saying that the project was shelved, because it certainly has not been shelved. It has been delayed.
By next week, new laws will come into force regulating the maintenance of air conditioning cooling towers, warm water systems and evaporative air cooling systems. They are all potentially incubators for the deadly Legionella bacteria. The Health Department is holding seminars across the state to make people aware of their legal obligations.
Well, the most important reason behind this particular seminar is to ensure that building owners realise that they have a legal obligation to maintain their cooling towers in a clean condition.
4 people died last month from Legionnaire's disease, and almost 40 became ill after they came into contact with the bacteria. By the 18th of May, all water cooling systems will have to be registered with local councils. The onus is on building owners and managers to provide councils with the relevant information.
It's very important that health professionals know the locations of these cooling towers. In the event of an outbreak, it saves a lot of time when environmental health officers know exactly where to look.
The new laws apply to commercial premises and not domestic air conditioning systems. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
An appeal judge freed Judith Ward in London, saying he rejected the evidence which saw her convicted. Police produced a confession to a bus bombing which killed 12 people, but the admission was either concocted or produced under duress. Ward was just 25 when she was arrested. She joins a growing list of people in Britain who've been wrongfully jailed for terrorist offences. The people of Bosnia appear to be beyond help as Serbians renew their battle to control the former Yugoslav Republic. The Serbs are preparing to stage a final assault on the capital Sarajevo as their heavy guns are steadily demolishing the city. Most women and children have been evacuated, but others are stuck in hospital. Among them, a 3-year-old girl shot by a sniper and a baby who's been cut off from his family. In the United States, a father who qualifies as the mere male of the month. Michael Murray was going out in his car, carrying baby Matthew in his portable car seat. Onto the roof and left him there, driving a whole kilometre before accelerating along the freeway. Matthew was on the road, still in his car seat, and the other traffic stopped just in time. Little Matthew is sleeping soundly now, but not his dad. He's having nightmares.
Over 400 students laced on the track shoes for the event which began at Taylor Park, Moree, and finished 8 kilometres later back at school. It was the first time the school has run a race like this, with students sponsored to complete the course. And the teachers weren't left out either. The school has raised more than $8,000. The money will be split, 2/3 donated to the Salvation Army, the rest...
Hopefully we'll be using that money to set up a gymnasium in the school with some fitness testing equipment that the kids can use during their sport.
First student home, Glenn Leggingham, followed by industrial arts teacher Martin Shiner. First place in the girls was tied, with Janina Hood and Angela Lamont crossing the line together. For the last 3 years, Dr Vong Nguyen with the Department of Agriculture at Gosford has been putting together a gold mine, developing, growing and preparing Asian vegetables for a lucrative market in Japan.
We could open up about, I think, about $50 million in the next, say, 3 or 4 years.
Crops like long white radish are popular in Japan. The radish can be eaten fresh, pickled or dried. $500 million worth is imported into that country each year, and the radish can be easily grown on the Central Coast. Burdock also thrives in Australian conditions. Dr Nguyen has already sent a 60-tonne sample to Japan. A $3 million order will soon be ready to go.
In Japan, they face problems with there is no room to grow.
More than half of all Australian vegetables exported go to Southeast Asia, yet only 10% are Oriental types. With a $50 million incentive, Australian farmers could be enticed to change their attack on the market. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The league wanted an up-and-coming band to perform pre-match. The Jets were chosen. Midway through the molten roar, singer David Gleeson had this message for the masses. Officials blustered, refusing to pay the band. League marketing manager Brian Walsh says it was unprofessional to use the performance as a platform for political statements. He told NBN News they had their chance, they blew it. The band says it'll go through the courts to get its $5,000 fee. Guitarist Grant Wormsley said today, what did they expect? A cabaret? Anthony Griffiths, NBN News. have come out of the woodwork. Last night, number 2 sports ground, fairly swarming with Guernsey-clad girls. They got straight down to business. Scrummaging practice looked like some kind of bizarre ballet. They're coming to grips with tackling. Those who grew up with brothers have a distinct advantage.
They're not too bad. I think once they get used to the fact that if they learn how to tackle properly, they won't get hurt. They should be okay with it. A few are a little bit too vigorous, but they're okay.
It all happens the June long weekend. 2 teams from Sydney, 2 from Canberra, and 1 each from Melbourne, Brisbane and Armidale. On the local front,
Probably looking at a dropout rate maybe of about 10%. So we'll be happy if we can get 2 full squads in of about 20 to 25 people.
Yeah. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News. Tomorrow night's Masters is the first indoor speedway event ever held in New South Wales. This morning, finishing touches were being made on the 120-metre track, excess dirt was removed and the surface made firm. A rider of a different kind was on hand to give his stamp of approval. The showground arena practically had to be rebuilt to accommodate the event, with hay bales lining the track and meshing erected to protect spectators. The race has attracted competitors from all over the state, Queensland and Victoria, organisers having to turn drivers away.
Been inundated with calls, guys wanting to ride, but we just had to turn a lot away because we just could not fit them in.
Gates open at 5 with racing starting at about 6:30.
If anyone can get here, they should be here.
These paintings are somewhat different to the ones Colette Mitchell is now missing. The stolen works are the products of her efforts in the last decade, but since then her style has changed. She only noticed they were missing recently.
I was cleaning the garage and sorting out some paintings, some important paintings which are representative of the way I painted in the 80s, and I discovered several of them missing.
The paintings feature a wide variety of subjects strongly influenced by Armidale.
One of which is a very fine painting of the blue hole in winter, and another painting which was a portrait of my mother shortly after she gained her British Empire medal, and then there was a frame missing, a very, very fine French hand-carved swept frame.
The artist has appealed for the painting's return. She's putting together an exhibition for September the 11th and believes the paintings are vital for continuity.
It's a great loss. It's really a personal loss because in painting a picture you do put something of yourself in the work. You lose and gain to a certain extent. So, as I said earlier, whoever stole the painting knew what sort of thing they were after.